If you're really trying to improve at Overwatch, one of the best tools that you can use is the replay feature. You can rewatch a game from your perspective or from a bird's eye view and see every moment that led to the eventual conclusion of a match. For most people, however, they do not know how to VOD review. They don't know what to look for, and so I want to help you by giving a guideline for what events are important to review, finding the mistakes and turning them into learning moments, and do it all in a manner that doesn't make it feel like homework. VOD reviewing should always start with a question. What do you want to get out of the review session? This way, there is a clear direction and motto for why you're reviewing in the first place. Otherwise, I've found I get bored and I will only look at the surface level stuff, and yeah, you won't learn very much. For instance, a question you could have is, why do my supports keep dying first? Or how did we lose the point? If you want to do a total VOD review with the question of how did we lose the game, then there are three major situations that you should always review. Those are your ultimate usage, your death, and whenever either team gains permanent progress, e.g. you or the enemy team captures the objective or reaches a checkpoint. Now for this video, I won't be going through those examples, but I'll show you a faster way of VOD reviewing. All in all, the idea is the same and how you extrapolate info is the same. I'll show you what I mean. In this game of Eichenwald, the main question I have is, how do I lead my team through the choke point? Which is honestly a question that every tank player should have at one point or another, especially since there's one. And so we'll dive into that a little bit later. But what I do want to start off with is some prefacing points about VOD reviewing, especially your attitude towards VOD reviews. So the first of which is, don't look for the easy answer. Easy answer things are your teammates, your DPS, or your supports are poorly positioning, which effectively means that they're feeding, and that's why we lost the game. Or your Widowmaker couldn't hit a headshot, and we couldn't get the first pick, or lost the Widowmaker duel. So that's why we lost the game. She is dead weight. And I don't really like those arguments because usually you can kind of sum it up as, if you have a solution, why didn't you try it? So that kind of leads us into the second point, focus on your own play, because you can't control the things that are uncontrollable. So I won't discount the arguments that your teammates might actually be garbage and they are dead weight, or your team composition was off, or your teammates did poorly position, but you can't control those things. But you can indirectly influence those situations so that they turn into a positive. And we'll see that in this VOD review especially. And really what I want to preach in this VOD is that you take the ownership of yourself and you really try and iron out your mistakes so that if you play perfectly, you should win 60 to 70% of your games. Those 30% are you either making fatal errors or it's just your team just got diffed. And there are those situations, don't want to discount them, but you can actually win 70% of the games. If you're not GM, or if you're not top 500 or OWL or something of that sort, you can't really blame those surface level things like team composition or the strategy, right? Like there are some things you can really work on to improve your own game. Is kind of my point with all this. Now, pardon me for explaining a little bit more, but I also need to talk about the phases of reviewing. So I briefly talked about if you have the question of how did we lose the game, that implies that you're reviewing the entire game. That's when you would use the three major situations thing I talked about, where you look at your ult usage, your death, and whether or not any team has captured the objective or reached a new checkpoint. But in this one, and why it's a shorter VOD review, is because it's a pointed question. And with the question being, how do I lead my team through this? That's an awful arrow. How did I lead my team through this checkpoint or a choke point? Then we're looking at all instances that we tried to get my team across this choke point. And so I, especially as Wreckball, I don't die. I don't get my ult for quite a long while, and we don't capture the objective. So that's why, yeah, those three instances don't really apply. But they're a good outline overall. So that's why the phases of reviewing is kind of like the backup plan, and they both kind of work together. So we know what our question is. That's point number one. How do we lead our team through the choke point? The second question is find the pattern of errors that lead to your team's demise. And the third point is to problem solve. What different avenues could you have taken in order to adapt, so to speak, in these gameplays? And that's point number four, is that you adapt or experiment in game. So now that you have different avenues or different things you want to approach with, you kind of put your theories to the test in game. All right, so that's enough talking. So point number one, just to restart yet again, we know what our question is. How do I lead my team through the choke? And the second one is find the pattern. So this is where we review the gameplay. Let's do that. We're going to speed it up here. So you see I'm trying to dislodge the Roadhog. That's good. opening up the scene for my teammates, but then my Mercy gets killed. So let's talk about why this is an error on my side. So take the responsibility of yourself. It could be that your Mercy was positioning poorly, was a little too cocky by flying into the crosshairs of the Sojourn, or the Sojourn just hit a crazy, nasty shot. Either way you put it, I can't control those things, but I can influence them. So let's kind of look at my gameplay here. So here's what I do. I'm going to dislodge the Roadhog here, and look at that. I take the hook as well, so extra points from me. We open up this seam for my teammates, and you can see my Genji and my Sojourn just slid in. He wall climbed in. Honestly, the fact that my Mercy died is remarkable because she can fly in and she's really tough to hit, and my Kuriko can just easily teleport to my Genji, right? So the fact that we lost that fight is kind of remarkable given the advantage we have. But again, looking at the ways I made a mistake, it's actually right here. You'll see through the player outline that I have my guns open. So once I open up the seam, what I need to worry about is this other threat here of the Cassidy being pocketed by the Mercy, or the Sojourn herself just the railgun headshot. So that's what I really need to worry about here, is that I took a little too long. I didn't take it step by step, and I thought I opened up a seam when in reality there's another threat that was really hammering my teammates and making it so that they couldn't pass without taking fatal damage. Like that. So that's how the first fight concluded. We'll just kind of wrap it up here, because it gets a little bit extended. All right, so next fight, we'll put on the overlay for this one. We'll slow it down too. So here's the next fight. Sojourn's just staggered herself. We've got the blue team, the enemy team, pushing way far forward. So here's the strategy here. I'm going to roll onto point, cause point pressure, right? So that the enemy team has to respect it, which will then force the enemies to draw back. And you'll see exactly what happens when I start to apply point pressure. Here we go. Drawing back the Cassidy, drawing back the Mercy, drawing back the Kuriko. They have to respect it. Like, oh boy. I was so close, almost getting that first tick. But if you notice, like the impact of this point pressures, look at this. They got Sojourn and Roadhog, so 2 people, versus our 2 supports and 2 DPS. We should easily punish this Sojourn and really hurt this Roadhog so that he's low in cooldowns and actually becomes punishable. So we should win this. Sojourn gets hooked. I try and slam and try and punish the Sojourn, but Kuriko uses her Suzu or Bell, and they are able to escape here. We fight a little bit longer, but it doesn't really matter. It's the events that we're looking at when we try and cross a choke. So why did it fail? Well, if we go back to that section there, I apply point pressure. Let me go a little bit further back because it really shows it. If I put the overlay on, so I'm creating point pressure. Look at where my Sojourn is. She is just returning from spawn. So this is the error on my part. Own up to your mistakes. That I needed to be a little bit more patient. I can look through the walls using the player outlines, and I could just wait for my teammates to be a little bit more grouped up. And that way, when these 3 enemy heroes try to approach me, my Sojourn would be there to apply more damage pressure and probably punish them. Okay? So that's error number 1. Error number 2. We'll continue playing. So I waste about a second or 2 seconds. It is kind of minor, but Overwatch is a fast game. I waste a little bit of time trying to hold my ground on this point here. And so you could say, well, I'm just kind of holding these guys hostage, but really, I'm not getting any value myself either, because there's no way I'm capturing this point. I've got 3 enemies that I cannot kill. And so intuitively, I should probably grapple somewhere up here on this tower, whatever it may be, and try and swing forward and try and boot these 2 people who are overextending to try and force our advantage. Okay? So the issue with this one is I was just too slow in the head to really think about that. And if I were to go a little bit sooner, then the situation where the Roadhog hits a hook, I probably could have booped the Roadhog or messed up his crosshair. That kill wouldn't have happened. Or maybe the Roadhog couldn't have even taken that shot, because if I was a little bit more patient, and then the Sojourn would put a little more pressure onto the Roadhog. So you can see those two little errors that kind of echo into the rest of the fight. It's almost a little bit of what if, okay? So those are the two errors, and those are the two situations I kind of want to showcase here. So we kind of did a little bit of a mix of find the pattern. We saw the pattern where the issue was I couldn't contain the threats, or I wasn't able to quickly think on my feet and just intuitively know what the issue was. Like I should force my advantage and swing forward, especially with that one situation where once I'm dealing with the Roadhog, I'm spending way too much time dealing with him, and I need to split up this guy, right? I was just spending too much time, or I was wasting time. Either way. So that was the pattern of errors. There are some micro things that you could really work on, and so we kind of did a little bit of both, where we problem solved as well. If I want to take this a little bit of a step further, I could also ask the team composition question. Do I need to play Wrecking Ball? Could I play Reinhardt? Because he's got a shield. He can go like this, and he can walk forward and make it so that my teammates can take this left side and then slowly make their way into point. That's one possible way, but it's kind of like the argument of the surface level question. If you had a solution, why didn't you try it? So we're taking the situation as it is. If I'm playing the hero, I should know how to play the hero. The situations where they're good at, the situations where they're unplayable or find no value. So then that's when we would take it into step 4. So adapt or experiment. And that's when we would kind of take what we know. We found the pattern of errors. We problem solved a little bit. And so now we're going to apply that into the real game. The last two things I want to wrap this video up with is, well, the first one is how do you find the replay section? And the only way you can do it is by being in the main lobby. So you can't be in practice range. You can be like here or something. And the 3 ways that you can do it is by going into the career profile like that, or you can go into your options, career profile yet again, or you can right click your icon, hit the career profile, then look for the history tab, look for replays. There you go. You got all your previous games. And it's really nice because you can organize, you can pin and add a notes, which is really nice if you're VOD reviewing in between queues, that you can add a note so that it keeps it fresh in your head of what you're trying to look for. Like that VOD review I just did right there is like, it was 11 minutes, but it was actually less than that because I was explaining a lot of things. So it actually could have been a little bit shorter. Now, the second thing is, if you have a low Overwatch IQ, the issue with this whole VOD review thing, if you're a gold player, is that you don't know the different avenues to take. And the only thing I can really recommend is that you just be creative with it and you experiment a lot. That's the only way you could really VOD review yourself. Just find different solutions to your problems is all I can say. So for instance, a point pressure one is a great strategy if you're a flanker. That's one avenue that you could take if you spot your teammates just being hammered home in their own spawn. Well, then if you're a flanker, you can easily walk around the entire map and then try and put point pressure on the payload or something, try and drag those enemies back to their positions so that your teammates have more space. Or the team composition thing, try different heroes. You could also ask your teammates, but it's not Overwatch etiquette. And yeah, that's a whole nother can of worms. But you can try different heroes and see which one sticks. So yep, be creative with it is all I have to really say. And that's going to do it for this video. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments below. I'll be sure to get to them. All questions are welcome. And until then, I'll see you when I see you. Peace.